Hey, Philip Dockery here again. One of the things that characterizes whether or not a DMEK case is hard or difficult is often the conditions of the eye when you're unfolding the graft. We've had some videos about post-vitrectomized eyes, hyper deep eyes, very shallow eyes with their graft unfolding. But what about an eye where the cornea, instead of being convex, becomes concave and starts to indent when you're unfolding when you try to shallow the chamber? So that's what happens in this case. So let's walk through how we manage that and what type of chamber that really behaves like. So let's get started. So this is a DMEK case. You can see pretty clearly here that this cornea has significant edema because it's very hazy centrally. We start like we do every DMEK case, doing 3 paracentesis that allow for the AC maintainer to be put into place and then allow for access with our reverse Sinskis for the descendant rexus, making the main wound next with a 2.8 millimeter keratome. And then I personally like to slightly enlarge that wound just so the wound doesn't get stretched out when I insert the graft. After inserting the AC maintainer, I then get my reverse Sinski and score around the periphery so that I can start my descendant rexus. And so this descendant rexus in particular, everything's going fairly smoothly. This eye is pseudophakic, so I was having a little bit of trouble with some of the previous wounds where it was kind of fibrotic to those previous places. You just have to be very gentle with those areas and try to pull a little bit parallel to those. That can kind of help release it from those wounds. But anyway, after all of the main part of the Descemet's membrane is removed, kind of cleaning up the peripheral fragments with the Melis scraper, and then getting the air bubble out, and now we're injecting the graft. And so I inject the graft. Right now it's kind of this kinked single roll. So I'm tapping it there to kind of straighten it out. And then I'm going to do a burst of BSS through one of the paracentesis to see, okay, well, how let this graft orient itself and let me see what type of position it configures itself into. A little bit of air in that cannula, so some bubbles kind of emulsified into the anterior chamber. So I'm cleaning those up right now so that the graft can not interact with those air bubbles during the rest of the unfolding. There's one more little bubble, so I'm probably going to try to get that out before I proceed with unfolding the graft. And so let's remove that here. Okay, so now that all the air bubbles are out, I'm going to kind of tap on this graft, see if I can figure out the orientation. It's not really behaving quite right. And so I need to inflate the chamber a little bit, see if I can kind of spin this graft, get into the proper orientation. So right there, it's a double roll. It looks like it's in relatively good orientation. I'm going to try to shallow the chamber and put some taps on it. So right now it seems like we're in a winning configuration. So again, shallowing the chamber. And then if I shallow the chamber, I should be able to put taps on it right in between there. I'm getting both cannulas out, trying to do Dirazomer. As you see, the graft is staying folded up. It's not really wanting to unfold itself. And you can see really because of the light reflexes on the cornea is not staying like a dome. It's actually kind of indenting in. It's becoming concave. And so when I'm putting taps on the cornea, it's not pushing the fluid out like how we would expect so that the graft would unfold appropriately given the surface taps that we're doing. And so I'm continuing to try to use 2 cannulas, do some Dirazomer taps to see if I can unfold this graft. But again, this graft is really just kind of shifting around as opposed to unfolding the way that you would expect it to be. And at this point, you really can see the cornea is becoming concave. It's just indenting. And so when you see this configuration, you're thinking, oh, well, the cornea is indenting. It's probably a very shallow chamber, but actually it acts like a very hyper deep chamber. It acts like a chamber that you can't shallow at all. And so these surface taps are the same way as like a post-vitrectomized eye, where you're not able to do anything with it. It doesn't really propagate the fluid the way you would expect for it to. So I'm going in directly with the cannula and treating it as a hyper deep chamber and using a much touch technique to unfold this graft directly with the cannula and really put it into a better position. And so here I can see the mark of the cornea of the graft. I can see it's in the right side up orientation. I put a little air bubble underneath it to kind of hold everything in place while I'm kind of continuing to tap out the rest of it. That air bubble might be a little too big. I probably want to actually shrink that so I can shift it more central, because it does look a little bit shoved superiorly here. So I probably want to shrink that air bubble a little bit and then shift it over. One thing you notice now when I'm shifting over the graft, despite the chamber still being like a hyper deep acting, the graft doesn't just curl back up. Because one thing you may notice when you do, when you have, before I'm going to pause that, one thing you may notice when you have DMEK grafts that are really in these hyper deep chambers that are wanting to continue to curl and curl, once you actually get them fully unfolded though, it's almost like it breaks their spirit. It's like you're breaking the spirit of a horse that you're trying to do. And once you get it tamed, it'll stay unfolded and you can kind of shift it a little bit. And so that's kind of what you saw in this situation. I didn't have to have that air bubble in place, but once it was fully unfolded, I could kind of shift it over a little bit. And then once it was shifted centrally, then I could put a large bubble underneath to lift it up. But again, like kind of highlighting the point of this case is that when you see a cornea start to become indented in, it's not acting as a very shallow eye. It's actually acting as a hyper deep eye. So you need to change your approach from doing the surface taps that propagate fluid to unfold the graft to maybe doing direct manipulation with the cannula so that you can better unfold the graft quickly and efficiently. Thanks for watching.